Time for another MJ Gaming Spotlight in Her Majesty's name. Hello everyone, welcome to MJ Hobby Corner. I hope everyone is well. I am MJ and I will host today's little video. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to geek out a little bit, talk about some games. MJ Gaming Spotlight is my official little overview of war games, and I usually pick a game randomly from my library and discuss it with you guys. Maybe show a couple of example turns, talk about the miniatures, etc., etc. All right, so today we have In Her Majesty's Name. This is a steampunk skirmish war game by Osprey Games. First things first, we go into building a company. Your warband will be known as a company. What you need to play, we will need 10-sided dice. This is a 10-sided dice system. Very simple too. Not a lot of rolls, as we'll see in a minute. Not a lot of different rolls and stuff. It does have modifiers, which we will look into. And of course, you need terrain and you need miniatures. We'll discuss the miniatures in just a minute. Here's a nice soldier. Very cool. I love this kind of fantasy art. 4 different phases in the game. We get initiative, we get move, we get shoot, and fight. Those are all the different phases to the turn. Movement is alternatively, so let's say I move a figure, my opponent moves a figure. I move a figure, my opponent moves a figure. And that's, of course, in initiative order. If we're playing a 2-player, a 3 or 4-player game, it's all in initiative order. Okay, so whoever has the highest initiative moves first, etc., etc. So the first, after initiative, we go on to movement. And so figures move 6 inches. On foot, figures on foot, and of course figures that are mounted will move longer distances, and figures can run by adding an extra 3 inches to their movement. However, that does affect the way they shoot. They can't shoot in the next phase if they run in the movement phase. If I have my little figure over here, and, she moves, then my opponent moves, I move, etc. We finish the movement phase. Then we go back to shooting. And then I decide who is going to shoot. They shoot, and then my opponent goes, etc., etc. So that's the way that works. Moving into contact with an enemy figure for melee. Disengaging from a fight. Movement and terror. So there is a fear system, fear mechanic in this game. We have mystical powers, which can be used either in the shooting phase or fighting phase, depending on the power. We have jumping, so figures can jump. Figures can also climb terrain, and climbing is done very easily if we have our terrain piece here. And again, we have our little female figure. So she wants to climb this rock, and say her base is already touching the base of the rock. Her movement is 6 inches, so we count the distance up. All right, well, we're going to round that up, say it's 2 inches. So she uses 2 inches of her movement to climb up, and then she has 4 inches left. So maybe she'll move here, take some cover, maybe take some a peek out of the edge of the rock there. Okay, so she's moved a total of 4 inches. If she wants to go back down, she will use again her movement and until she gets back down to the ground. Okay, so that depends on how much movement she has left. So in this case, if she can stand up here, then we'll say she has 4 inches, right? So that's an inch. That's another inch. So basically she can climb back down, and that's her full 6 inches. Okay, and of course that has to be agreed upon. between players. If this terrain is impassable, then obviously she wouldn't be able to climb up. So it has to be something that you agree with in the game between all the players. So units that have flying abilities or leaping abilities, depending, maybe they have a piece of equipment that allows them to fly or jump. Basically, it's the same thing. The unit will have a certain move distance, okay, and then that unit can ignore the terrain and simply move to the other side. That is provided that the terrain is not difficult terrain or anything like that. Now, if, let's say a figure is on difficult terrain, if we decide that that's difficult terrain and they want to fly over to another side of the terrain, the figure has to make what's called a pluck roll. And if that figure passes the pluck roll, then it can move with no problem to the other side, wherever it wanted to move, right? If the figure fails its pluck roll, something's happened, and the figure ends up knocked down. So troop classification is also important. We have the attributes in this section. One attribute in particular caught my eye, pluck. And this is basically the personality of the figure. Its arrogance, its fortitude, its courage, and it's considered a saving throw to save it from hits that penetrate armor, or even to charge an enemy that is terrifying. There are not many monsters in this book. In fact, there aren't any monsters in this book. It does mention them. I don't see any stats for them. Things like mummies and yetis, and I'm sure that once I become familiar with the rules, we can actually make some monster stats. It'll be cool to have a few monsters. There is, however, talking about monsters, there is one of the companies we'll look into later has a mummified priest as one of the characters. So you are allowed to take some strange individuals. So next in attributes, we have shooting value, and that is SV, fighting value, FV, and speed. That's it. Those are the main attributes that you have to become familiar with. Pluck, shooting value, fighting value, and speed. Now, there are other talents and characteristics which will modify what a figure can do, and that is listed in their description. We also have mystical powers, so there is magic in this game, which is cool, and lots of equipment. Okay, so we have Mr. Prussian here, okay, with his military rifle. And then we have this individual in a winged suit, okay? So, could be an automaton, or it could just be someone in a contraption. So we're going to put him over there. Now, there is no pre-measuring, but I know that that is within 24 inches. This rifle has a 24-inch range and a +3 to the SV, or shoot value. Okay, so my opponent has light armor, and there's several categories of light armor. There is a table in the book, which we'll see in just a minute, that gives us the armor list of armors and the armor rating. So the shoot roll has to equal or better the armor of the target, and that's considered a hit. So my rifleman has an SV shoot value of +2. That stat is given as a bonus. So he has a +2. And the weapon bonus is a +3 because it is a military rifle. So that's a total of +5. And my opponent has a light armor with rating 10. So I have to beat a 10. A D10 roll with +5 be equaling or bettering a 10. Not a very difficult thing to do unless I roll a 1. And I roll a 9, which, yes. So he fires, hits the target. If this stone had been where the figure's a little bit hidden, as long as he can see the figure, he can still fire at it. However, there is cover given by the terrain. So that will have to take into account when shooting. So not very difficult. So now the strange winged person needs to make a pluck roll to stay in the game. And pluck roll is accomplished by rolling a d10. And because he was hit by a military rifle, he gets a -1 to the roll. He has to pass a 5 or better. And that stat comes from the tables. When you look up your companies, when you design your companies, there are a series of tables. And depending on what you recruit, they give you the stats. We're going to see that in just a minute. So he has a -1. He has to beat a 5. So he just rolls his d10. He rolls a 9. -1 is 8. And he's still in the game. It's as easy as that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so a very important mechanic to this game is the penalties for shooting. It's very important because it's really going to dictate how you move your figures, and it really it gives a very important tactical strategy to your figures. Okay, it's very important to really think before movement. So let's just say my female figure here, she has a pistol. Pistol has a 9-inch range. Remember, we don't pre-measure range. So she moves. She has a 6-inch move, and she moves here. All right, 4 inches total, right? She moved 4 inches. That is over 3 inches. And she's going to fire on this figure. Now, we're saying line of sight is good. And now there's no pre-measuring, but once we call the shot, we measure, and we see that it is 7 inches distance, still within the range of the pistol. She fires. However, she has moved, so she gets a -4 penalty. All right, in addition to any other pluses or minuses, some of the pluses might negate some of that penalty, and so it will be okay for her to shoot, right? Or in other cases, she'll take a hefty penalty because of different negative modifiers that have accumulated. Whatever the case is, she fires and misses, okay? On this figure's turn, which the opponent would have the immediate turn after she moved, right? Because it's I move a figure, opponent moves a figure. It's their turn to shoot. Let's say they also have a pistol. He has not moved. That is very important. She moved in order to get the shot, but he has not moved. So he gets a -2 penalty on her because she moved over 3 inches. Now, let's say she moves 2 inches, and that's all she needed, right? She just moved from here to here. She gets no penalty. It's only after 3 inches. Now, let's say this figure in the previous turn ran a full run, right? She has line of sight to him. She can fire, but now she gets a -3 because he ran the previous movement. So yeah, it's hefty penalties, and I can see that could be a little frustrating, but it really forces you to think. And factions that rely on shooting, like some factions really rely on shooting, other factions rely more on melee combat. That mechanic really brings a lot of strategy into the game, I think. All right, and that's just an opinion. So there we go. That was the important shooting mechanic. Just a quick thing with one of the factions, the Prussians, they have a zombie mechanic instilled into the faction. The infantrymen do. They carry a piece of equipment called the Revivifier. And if that piece of equipment if that figure is within 8 inches of another piece of equipment called an arc generator, if that Prussian infantryman is shot and killed, or is killed in melee, that infantryman gets to rise up again as a zombie. But only if he's within 8-inch range, diameter range, from the figure with the arc generator. So it's a very interesting zombie mechanic to the Prussians. Very interesting. Okay, so we're just going to say that the big game hunter here charges into melee combat with the riflewoman. She now pulls out her saber, and they're going to be in melee. So whoever has the initiative, whoever's the primary player, gets to do the roll first. If, in this case, we're going to say that he was the primary player, so he's going to get to roll first. If she survives, then she gets to attack him back. So that's how that works. It's not like an opposed roll or anything, which, you know, it's cool. It's a little different than what I'm used to. So our guy has +2. She has a +1. So let's do his first. So he rolls. Oop. Let's do that again. All right. So he rolled a 1. In this case, he would fail completely. Okay. All right. So those were examples of combat. Little examples of combat. And now, you know, there's a little bit of explanation on the pluck roll and terrain, difficult terrain, modern medicine, which we just talked about with the medics, and, you know, deployment, impassable terrain, all that. So there are notes on terrain, and that pretty much ends the rules for the game. So suits and stuff like magnetostatic projection barrier, you know, cool. So, and of course, there's a rating, there's a cost to them and points, and it gives you some notes. So a lot of armor, it goes to explain it, and then you get the weapons. And the weapons I'm interested in because it has quite a list of weapons, everything from crossbows, shotguns, shotgun short, blunderbuss, carbine, military rifle. There's our military rifle, hunting rifle, machine guns. Okay, so you got quite a list of weapons and transportation. There is vehicles in this game. And by the way, I've seen, I think this model does exist, and it is very, very cool. I've seen a picture of it, of a model like that, and it's very, very cool. So they have walkers and steam vehicles. So we're looking at a like rocket pack. That's pretty cool. Steam carriage. So a lot of these, like this is very cool. I would love to scratch build something like that. That's a police vehicle. You have an ornithopter. You have quite a few vehicles. So a lot of scratch building opportunities. Into talents and mystical powers, there's quite a list of talents. So these are the things that'll round out your characters. And of course, your powers. All of your powers are listed in this table right here. So quite a few powers. And cost of powers. And then we go into the companies themselves. Now, there is a system here so that you can make up your own companies. And I do like that. Any rule set that gives you the flexibility to do your own stuff. So forming a company, and then we have examples of various companies. We have the British Rifle Company. Okay. And let's see, Lord Kerr's Company. I don't know much about that. Scotland Yard. Cool. So you have quite a few options. You have the Black Dragon Tongue. That's Chinese. Okay. So it is the Black Dragon Tongue, a Chinese company. So that's cool. You have some really cool figures here. And I'm thinking of using my Malifaux figures would definitely fit some of these descriptions. So, yeah. We have the Wild West show. I'm interested in that. A lot of Malifaux figures will also fit that description. And then we get into scenarios. And it's interesting. It has about 7 or 8 scenarios. Oh, U.S. Marine Corps. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so there's about 7 different scenarios with listing all the objectives. So that's good because you get a good start of scenarios. We can always make up our own scenarios, the turn sequence, and some weapon lists, and looks like armor list as well. So There you go. That's all there is to it, really. Here we go. A big game hunter. I mean, he's a hunter as well in Malifaux. So these are good examples, and I basically any figure in my collection that'll have a nice little steampunk theme to it. So, all right, folks, that is all I want to say. Now, as far as web support goes, I did find it has a Facebook group. I'll put the link in the description. And like I said, this is harder to find these days. You can find it on eBay. If I find anything else, I'll put it in the description box. There's a Facebook group. There's a couple of YouTube videos as well that is worth checking out if you want more information on the game. There are other games we're going to be looking at in this genre. They're a little more recent, but this is just a relic game in my collection, so I just wanted to pull it out, show it, and then maybe play a couple of games in the future. Maybe Julie will be interested in playing this too. So, all right, folks, have a great one. That was In Her Majesty's Name by Osprey Publishing. We'll talk very soon, and hopefully get some games in very soon. Have a great one, guys.